Hey YouTubers, it's Hannah Saber from HR Images. In today's video, I'll be talking to you about the brand new Sony A7S III, so stay tuned. Like everyone, the anticipated wait for the Sony A7S III has finally been announced. I pre-ordered mine the minute that the pre-order was available. I sold my Sony A7 II when I had it at the time when everyone thought that the A7S III would be revealed. Originally, I loved the A7S II, and one thing I wanted the S3 for, and I was hoping for the S3, comparing like the R4 and the A7 III, it was the focus system. 12 megapixels, it does not faze me in terms of 12 megapixels. Now, with the A7S III, it has been more targeted and advertised for videographers. But for this review, I'm not going to base it on videos, I'm basing it on stills. A lot of people questioned me and said, why am I using on stills? I'm only doing YouTube. I'm not a professional videographer. Why would I need the A7S III? If you are shooting the R4 and the S3 side by side and posting them in social media, by the time you reduce the pixels and stuff to be able to post it on social media for the R4, there is no difference. So realistically, you do not need a 60 megapixel camera if you're only shooting for social media. Where I find you benefit the 60 megapixels, which I have got the R4 still, and I would not sell it. I've used the R4 mainly for portraits and landscapes where I want the detail, especially if I want to heavily crop. But the 12 megapixels has been plenty enough. I have actually done large prints with the 12 megapixels at a 20-inch by 30-inch canvas print, and it's clean. You want to avoid, with the S3 being 12 megapixels, you want to avoid shooting to be able to crop. If you have that mentality and you're going to always be cropping, you're going to tend to crop the image and lose megapixels, lose detail. If you're shooting, you have that frame of mind where you are making sure you frame your shot correctly. I will show you some image samples as well of the A7S III, and I'll talk to you things that I love about this camera and why I am being really excited to actually get my hands on one. The A7 III, one thing that everyone's sort of been wanting is the flip screen. We finally got a flip screen that articulates to forward, so if you're doing videos and everything, you can see yourself on the screen. Whereas before time, we had to use the external monitor. Then the A6000 came out and they had the flip screen that goes on top. Personally, I prefer this because if I'm mounting a mic on the top, I still want the screen visible. With the A6000, without using a small rig cage or an accessory to be able to mount the microphone on the side, the screen will be blocked with the view. So the A7S III, this is what I love. One thing about is the screen, the flip screen. Only thing is that you'd always have to, for me, I don't have a screen protector. I just flip it around and I close it. So it actually protects the screen, and that's what I like about it as well. Because the last thing you want to do is constantly damage the screen. One thing I did notice with the camera at the beginning is that I'm so used to the flip up screen to the other A7 cameras, I will be trying to flip up the screen and then I realize, crap, it's got to flip out, and then you turn it up. After a few uses, you intend to get used to it and get adjusted with it. So it's if you're used to the older system, you will sort of kind of get a bit confusing. Another thing as well is the menu system. As you would have seen some of the screenshots that Sony Alpha Rumors and other pages has been posting, this screenshot of the A7S III. Now, one thing I had problems with this menu system is I'm so used to the old menu system, it took me a while to get used to this. But after a while, when you navigate through, you intend to sort of get used to the system and know where everything is. You actually got on the top part here, you can set up a My Menu where you can quickly access shortcuts to certain menus that you're constantly accessing. Another thing I did like about it as well is that your video settings is actually completely separate to your still settings. So then you don't always have to change it if you're going back and forth for videos and stills. Ergonomics is really good. You still got the beefy grip here. You still got the compactness as for the mirrorless cameras, and another thing is the record button has been moved at top. I actually prefer the record button here, to be honest, opposed to the back, because it's sort of next to the shutter and you want to quickly record, you can access it very quickly and easy, and it feels more at home opposed to having at the back. That was one thing that I liked about the S3. Now you can be able to have the express cards or the SD cards. At this stage I've got the SD cards, but I do notice if you wanted to shoot the high 4K or in slow mode that I need the express cards to be able to work, as it won't record on the normal SD cards. With the S series, they have actually promoted it highly in terms of sensitivity. Now people question, why 12 megapixels, why can't we go more? Well, realistically speaking, the more megapixels that you have, the more noise that will introduce into the images as you got higher ISO. With the A7R4, I can shoot at 12,800. Anything above starts to get really grainy. You do get grain and noise in 12,800, but again, you can reduce the images. With the S3, these images I'm going to show you, I've shot at ISO 80,000, ISO 12,800, ISO 25,600, ISO 16,000, and there is very little noise. I did a little bit of noise reduction, but not like what I would do on the R4. The image quality on the A7S III is insane. The detail this camera picks up, it's just blown my mind. If you look at one of the shot, the harbour bridge, those little white dots aren't actually stars. They're actually the seagulls flying around the bridge. I couldn't see with my naked eye, but the camera picked it up. I didn't realize, I thought it was stars at first until I got closer and realized the birds were flying, then realized that it was actually the birds the camera had picked up. So the low light capability in this camera is insane for videos and stills. In weddings, I've used this camera on weddings, and the autofocus, I actually felt more at home with the S3, with the focus. It's actually faster and more responsive than what I used to use on the A7S II. The R4 autofocus was quick, but the tracking and the autofocus on the A7S III is just unbelievable. It's just a whole new level Sony had brought the focus system in this camera. Doing the low light, extreme low light at weddings, you know, no flash, just shooting these shots, being able to quickly grab the shot without any hunting or any issues with it, and just, you know, the more I use this, the more I was blown away, and I end up using the A7S III as my primary camera for a wedding, and the R4 as a backup. These shots now, they were captured during my martial arts workshop I shot, that I hosted, doing a bit of action, and all these shots were captured with the Sony A7S III and the 7200 f2.8 GM, as well as the 135 1.8 GM. I will put an consistent of shots one after the other, showing you the frame rates in the shots and showing you how well the tracking had kept up with the action and the focusing. Now, there aren't supercars, fast cars, or fast dogs. I didn't have access to that, only had martial arts. But still, in the A7S II, it would have struggled a lot to capture these shots. Whereas the S3 did not struggle, it was just blowing my mind. I would actually especially strong backlit, the S3 handle it very well, because I noticed some of my attendees, depending how strong the sunlight is in the background, backlighting the subjects, it was harder for them to lock on focus, where the S3 didn't struggle on that. So that was one thing that I have noticed with the S3. If anyone tells you don't get the S3 for photos, it's more of a video camera, to be honest, if you don't care, if you don't want the megapixels, 12 megapixels is plenty for social media shares. When you shoot weddings, you're giving them the photos. They're not gonna pixel peak. They're not gonna look at it and say, that's a 12 megapixel camera, I'm not happy. You cannot tell the difference. By the time you save the images and you give them, they won't be able to tell the difference. Even enlargement prints, I've printed 20 by 30 inch canvases with the S3. I will still use my R4 for more high detail stuff, portraits, as well as landscapes, but you know, for travel, for, you know, you don't want the heavy megapixels, you don't care, the S3 is good. Now, if you primarily want to use this for stills, you know, it may not be a wise investment, because you have more video features that this camera can produce opposed to what it does in stills. But if you're going to use a bit of videos as well, but primarily photos, it is really a great investment, because that way, you know, you are using the video features as well as the stills. But for me, I'm using it for my YouTube. I actually film all my videos. My last 3 videos I posted, if you haven't seen them, they were all captured with the A7S III. I'm actually filming with the 6600 now to be able to review this camera for you. But I will be using this more for stills in the low light capability, especially when I'm posting social media images and I don't want the detail. No, I won't say the detail because just have the detail, but if I don't want the megapixels, if I'm not planning to crop, or if I'm shooting and I'm making sure I frame right, because back in the day when you're shooting film, everyone had to frame right because you couldn't go and crop. So if you frame right and you make sure you grab the shot, you wouldn't have to needing to crop in post-production. So that's it, guys. That's just a quick short review on and my thoughts on the A7S III and what I like about it. It's been a long waited for this camera, and I'm actually really impressed. The more I use it, the more I get blown away. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like, share my video, and we'll catch you next one. See you guys.